All right, good evening, everybody. It is Steve with Real Progressives. You know, I remember when I was a little kid and I was listening to Black Sabbath and stuff like that. And my mom and dad were like, oh my God, turn that noise off. I can't stand that noise. What is it you're listening to? And all I could think of was, when I grow up, I sure hope I'm not like you guys, whining about the music being loud or whining about heavy metal or whining about something. And as I grew up, sure enough, I didn't follow suit. I love heavy music. And I love it because it makes me feel invigorated. It makes me feel ready to fight. There's nothing to get complacent about right now in the world. In fact, I find heavy metal to be extremely moment specific. It's perfect for the times we live in. And if that doesn't resonate with you, might I just say maybe your head's too far in the sand to understand why that matters. But I do understand that there's some people out there who simply cannot handle anything other than the kind of music they enjoy. And so to you folks, I beg you, forgive me for liking music different than you. I beg you. Because quite frankly, I hate pop music. I hate it to my core. It's shallow, it's thimble deep. It doesn't have any meaningful anything. So for me, I listen to the stuff that feeds my moment, feeds what I need. And that for me, folks, right now anyway, is heavy metal. But then again, I love the Grateful Dead too. I love the Dead. And I love all kinds of different hip hop. I love Dre. I love Snoop Dogg. I go all over the place from the Beastie Boys over to Slipknot. And from Meshuggah, over to Gojira. And something about my life feels okay because I can turn on Coldplay and then I can listen to Duran Duran and I don't lose an ounce of sleep over it. I love being versatile. And I still am freaking feeling the hate for mom and dad when they bellyached about my music being too loud. When they bellyached that they thought it sounded like somebody screaming. I remember Dee Snider testifying against all the whiny heinies, the Tipper Gores of the world, talking about their music and blah blah blah. It's now you're encouraging our kids, blah blah blah. God, did you ever think you'd grow up to be a curmudgeon like that? Did you ever think that you might grow up to be someone like Tipper Gore and the PMRC whining about the kids' music? Is that who you thought you'd be? I know it's not who I wanted to be. It's not who I thought I'd be. And damn it, it's not who I grew up to be. And I'm grateful for it. All right, let's get hitting with the tough stuff here tonight. So we're going to talk about two main things. We got Joe Biden out there. And Joe is obviously the chosen front runner for the Democratic Party. At least that's the way it seems right now. I'm sure as time goes on, they'll flip-flop, whatever. But right now, Joltin' Joe Biden happens to be the centrist of choice. And it's really a shame. And we're going to talk about that. But we're also going to talk about the DNC's recent decision to tell everyone, hey, we're not only not going to have a debate on climate change, but if you try to have a debate outside of us, we'll shut you out of our debates. How's that? Typical DNC. For those of you who said, just enter, there's your DNC. They want us to die on a planet that's burning up around us. They don't want a climate discussion. And that's a real shame. So let's talk about Joe Biden. There was a great article in Paste magazine. And this article, to me, I think, quite frankly, is just about as scorching hot earth of molten magma as you can get. So, Joltin' Joe, hopelessness is Joe Biden winning the primary. I'm not sure that it gets any better than that, really, quite frankly, when you think about titling for an article. But let's go ahead and read up what Joltin' Joe, what they say in this thing. It's like, the big story of the Democratic primary Friday morning is Joe Biden reversing his position on the Hyde Amendment, which bans federal funding for most abortions and has been around in some form since 1976. 3 years after Roe v. Wade, The important thing to know about this change of heart is that NBC News ran a story Wednesday in which Biden's campaign confirmed, folks, this is Wednesday, his campaign confirmed that he still supported the Hyde Amendment. Heavy scrutiny followed, and then presto, homeboy didn't support it anymore. I want you to think about what that just said. Anyway, this is the point in the story at which liberals of a more centrist persuasion, especially the ones who lurk on Facebook, say things like, are we so rigid that we can't accept a candidate who evolves? Isn't changing your mind over time a good thing? Never mind, it was the day before. We get it, Paste. You hate Biden. Thanks for showing your privilege by helping Republicans. You won't be the ones who have to live with the results of another Trump win. All of which, of course, is just a copycat script from 2016 when the Democrats ran another miserable, principle-free candidate who inspired no enthusiasm and crashed and burned against an historically terrible candidate in Trump, saddling us with our current dystopia. I mean, folks, I don't know that I have to read much more than that. How many of you have had the pleasure of talking to somebody that says, what do you want, Trump? Raise your hand. It's okay. We've all been victim of this abuse, this psychosis, this worthlessness. And they've all been more than willing to let us all suffer another 4 years of Trump by pushing forward garbage like this. Now, you might think this is a political discussion, but it's not. This is a psychology discussion. This is a discussion on the thimble-deep lemmings that try to advance the idea that if you in any way, shape, or form say anything against a centrist, corporate, right-wing person like Joe Biden, Daddy Warbucks, Joe Biden, Delaware's best, when you are told to shut up and eat your peas, when you're told up, leave him alone, leave all of them alone, what do you want, Trump? Well, what is it that they're doing there? They're not saying anything about Joe Biden. They're not saying Joe Biden is a great guy. He's going to go for everything that you've asked for because he's in your camp. Joe Biden, he's a real progressive. No, they're not saying that. Why is that? Because Joe Biden is absolutely worthless. This isn't about Joe Biden as a politician. This is who he is as a man. This is a guy who thinks that it's really interesting when a black person is well-spoken. But more importantly, though, Joe Biden is right-wing on women's bodies and the right for them to make choices and for the right for women to have some autonomy. Dude's a right-winger. A right-winger of the great Wehrmacht. Joe Biden, definitely not a friend of the progressive movement. But why do these people come back to the well and ask you if by explaining, not campaigning, not pontificating, not anything, just point blank talking about Joe Biden's record, talking about who he is as a person, why is it that by doing that, the only possible reason you could be saying these things about Joe Biden is because deep down inside you have a yearning for 4 more years of Trump? How ridiculous is that? And how ridiculous is it that if you say something like that, that they suddenly assume that your heritage lies somewhere near Macedonia or Russia? Why is it when you speak the truth? When did the Russians get a monopoly on being truth tellers? I didn't know the Russians, with all their nuclear problems they've got and all their nuclear lakes, their all their Chernobyls, etc. Why in the world do these people think that the Russians are just the truth tellers? Why do they keep accusing people that put down these centrist Democrats as Russians, aka truth tellers? I don't know. You're going to have to ask yourself that question. But ultimately, Joe Biden is just as awful as they get. And I'm going to get back to his article because I think it's worth talking about. So they come back and they say, all of which is just a copycat script from 2016 when when the Democrats ran another miserable, principle-free candidate who inspired no enthusiasm and crashed and burned against an historically terrible candidate in Trump, saddling us with the current dystopia. Because here's the thing. If you honestly believe that Biden evolved on the Hyde Amendment, as he's trying to claim, you're a dupe. The time for evolution has come and gone. 2016 would have been a decent time when Democrats began their serious pushback against Hyde and his reversal now nakedly, obviously a response to political pressure. He changed because he cares very much about being president, not about women's reproductive rights. This is a guy who in 1977, 1981 voted against Hyde Amendment exceptions for abortions due to rape and incest. This is someone who has repeatedly said he opposes abortion due to his Roman Catholic faith. This is someone who has voted against allowing federal workers to use their health insurance for abortion. If he believes health care is a right as I do, Biden said in Atlanta on Thursday night, I can no longer support an amendment that makes that right dependent on someone's zip code. Can my eyes roll back in my head any further? I can see my brain. Why now? Because very late in the day, which way the progressive wind was blowing, if you needed more proof of his insincerity, note that he refused to apologize for his previous position, just like he refused to apologize for his key role in crafting the 1994 crime bill or to fully apologize for his treatment of Anita Hill during the Clarence Thomas hearings, despite his attempt to gain her public support, knowing it would be a potential obstacle on the way to his presidency, to the presidency. I can't tell you how much this guy makes my skin crawl. It's beyond anything that I can explain. And I think probably what makes it the worst is not whether a person of faith can believe differently. You know, I'd cut him a lot of slack if his core principles, he stood by him. I am sorry, I am a man of faith, and I absolutely cannot tolerate abortion. If he had said that, whether you agree or disagree with him, you got to give him props because he would be a man of integrity. He's standing up, albeit very much a, patriarchal stance, a very, very non-women's rights stance. But it would be a principled stance. Principles which this man has shown very little inclination for expressing because he is a centrist shill and is looking simply to get elected. So, this article goes on, and it's really quite good. And I'm going to put the link into the narrative so you guys will be able to see it. But I want to be crystal clear. They're going to push this stuff on us. This is not campaigning. This is not even politics. Folks, this is gaslighting. This is the media working collaboratively with a party to force feed a candidate that the American people really do not want. And that's a shame. But because most Americans are not exactly thinking deep, they're about, I don't know, an eighth of a millimeter deep when it comes to what they think about when it comes to voting. They just pull the left lever or pull the right lever. They don't spend a lot of time thinking it through. And so these media blitzes that allow people to just hear whatever they want to hear and ignore the rest of it, this is exactly how you end up with 4 more years of Donald Trump. It is. And it's also how you get people that don't understand the great possibilities out there for what we could do to save the planet. And that brings me to our next point, which is Jay Inslee. Now, I don't know if you guys know Jay. Jay's done some things in the past that make my skin crawl. He endorsed Hillary. There's an awful lot of things he did wrong. But Jay Inslee has been campaigning hard and strong on the idea of the climate being the number one issue, period. His entire platform is based around the Green New Deal, basically. His fossil fuel plans and every bit of his green energy plans have been called the gold standard by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, Jay Inslee just barely made it into the debate stage finally. He got enough donations or whatever to be able to make it in. But what he's done, and I want to give the man credit, he's speaking out boldly against the DNC for making these worthless stances on not debating climate change, not debating a Green New Deal. Do you realize the IPCC said we had 12 years at the time, 11 now. And we've got people that are fighting tooth and nail right now already for a Green New Deal. Now, does Jay Inslee have a prayer in hell to become president? Nah, probably not. Probably not. But we got to give him credit for taking a principled stand on the environment. So let's go ahead and see what this has to say. So, scrolling down through here, Washington governor and 2020 presidential hopeful Jay Inslee says the Democratic National Committee is refusing to schedule a candidate debate on the climate crisis. Inslee said Thursday he was told by the DNC that if he participates in any non-DNC affiliated debate on the climate, he would be disinvited to future debates. Think about that. Held by the committee. You want to talk about needing to break up a monopoly? You want to talk about trust busting? You want to talk about something, they had to break up the bells. You want to talk about finding a way around this ridiculous breach of democracy? These guys need to be broken up. They need to lose their monopoly power. They need to get rid of their control over these things. We need to overturn any chance of either party being able to ice out or rule above the nation. I'm tired of hearing about them being a corporation. That may well be true legally, but we know functionally we the people are going in there with our eyes set to try and find a president that we want, that we relate to, that we think covers the issues. And with this kind of nonsense, how in the world will we ever find out more? They're literally blocking a debate on climate and telling anyone that does this outside of the debates will be iced out of the remainder of the debates. Now, here's my challenge to all the candidates. If Inslee goes and debates somewhere, for once in your entire life, show some spine and join him. Walk away, everybody, make everyone ineligible to debate in the DNC debates, and show how important climate change is, and show how important debating the merits of a Green New Deal is. That would show America some real spine, some real conviction, some decency. So I suspect that won't happen, though. I suspect, because vote blues tend to just do whatever they're told, I suspect they'll do exactly as they're told and skip the debates. But that's a real shame if you think about it, because ultimately, the vast majority of Americans don't check in on these issues until the time for these debates. Then they'll turn their boob tube on and they'll watch the debates. And that's when they find out, oh, honey, did you know that climate change appears to be a big deal these days? Yeah. Climate change is apparently a really important topic. I think we should pay attention to it. Terrible, but true. And we could have been talking about it for years, just like I've been doing with MMT. But the average person's not paying attention, not until the debates. So to stifle debate on climate change, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And it should have every activist that gives a shit about our environment, about the sustainability of this planet, and about our ability to retain, life on this planet. We should be literally storming the gates on this one. This is just way over the top. I am surprised I have not heard even more condemnations over this. Anyway, ultimately, Inslee called the move a deeply disappointing attempt to blacklist candidates. He said in a statement the DNC is silencing the voice of Democratic activists, many of our progressive partner organizations, and nearly half of the Democratic presidential field who want to debate the existential crisis of our time. Think about it. I mean, this is serious. Wouldn't you agree? Would you not agree that this qualifies as serious as hell? I kind of believe it is. And, I want to talk maybe for a few minutes about the Green New Deal. None of these centrist Democrats want a Green New Deal. You had a few putzes show up at Chatham, which Joe Biden conveniently skipped. But you had these shills go out there. Maybe they were handpicked for bad behavior. I don't know. But they show up there to bellyache about Medicare for all and stuff like that in front of a crowd of progressives that showed up. Let's be fair. Progressives are the ones that show up, even if it's at a Democratic event. We just love being abused, don't we? In any event, they booed the hell out of this guy, Delaney, from Maryland. I mean, we're talking about people that are out there saying that healthcare shouldn't be a right. He's more worried about keeping the insurance companies around. That doesn't sound very progressive to me. That doesn't sound very human to me. But a Green New Deal covers an awful lot of territory, doesn't it? It covers the federal job guarantee. It covers fossil fuels. It covers a whole host of things that we as a nation desperately need. And without this being on the stage, and with the DNC propping up candidates like Jolton Joe Biden, what prayer do we really have to make a dent? Unfortunately, this isn't an issue of whether we like it or not. This is just the facts. Unfortunately, we have a first-past-the-post system. Puts us in a very, very tough position, doesn't it? I mean, I'm all about voting your conscience. But when you check out during the primaries and you don't fight for someone within that first-past-the-post race and find someone that is more suitable to run, and you just check out and you play games in an area where you know the person's not getting elected, period, I'm not sure you did anything useful there. I understand you might feel like you did. I'm just struggling figuring out what it was. But a Green New Deal is paramount, and it's going to take every one of our attention. And I think that that begins by talking, picking up the phone, writing letters, doing whatever you can to address the DNC's obvious heavy handed fossil fuel sucking decision to block a climate debate, which is first and foremost on the vast majority of progressives' agenda. The time to act is now, not when it's too late, not when you can wring your hands and say, oh, there was a time where I thought we were going to do something, nothing ever happened. Well, folks, you got to take action. You got to make some phone calls. You got to write to people. You got to get on your local radio programs. You got to get on social media. And you've got to stop kicking the can down the road. This is where the rubber meets the road. And they're going to block us if we don't block them first. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a great night, everybody.